Ava Collins had never liked the graveyard shift, not because it was quiet, but because the quiet gave her too much time to think about everything she could not fix. The diner near the Seattle waterfront hummed with the low buzz of old lights and the distant sound of container ships moving through the fog. At 23, she was already tired in a way that felt too old for her age. Money was always short bills, always late, and her little sister Harper depended on her for everything. Ava wiped down the counter for the 5th time that hour when the door swung open and a cold blast of rain cut across the room. A man stepped inside, dripping water onto the linoleum floor, moving with a stagger that made Ava straighten up immediately. He wore a dark hoodie with the hood halfway fallen back, revealing hair matted with rain and a streak of dried blood near his temple. His left hand trembled as he pressed it against his side. Ava noticed something strange on his wrist, a black silicone bracelet with one edge burned and melted as if touched by fire. She told herself not to stare, even though it looked so out of place, like a clue from a life far more dangerous than anything she had ever known. The man chose a booth near the window, and Ava approached with a cautious smile. She tried not to make him feel watched, even though every instinct told her something was wrong. His eyes were sharp, though half hidden under wet lashes, and there was a heaviness in the way he met her gaze, like he was carrying more than his body could hold. Before she could ask if he needed help, shouting erupted from outside, muffled by the rain, but fierce enough to snap both their attention toward the street. 2 men were arguing by a parked car just beyond the glow of a street lamp. Ava could not make out the words, only the tension, the kind that curls like a fuse waiting to ignite. The stranger in the booth tensed, his eyes widening with recognition or fear, or maybe both. Ava felt the shift in him, the way his breath caught, the way his hand tightened. He whispered something too soft for her to hear. Then everything happened at once. A blinding flash split the night. The parked car exploded into a fireball that shattered the diner windows and sent a wave of heat rolling through the room. People screamed and ducked. Ava instinctively shielded her face, heart-hammering ears ringing from the blast. Flames licked the outside walls, crawling up toward the roof as debris rained onto the sidewalk. Tables overturned. Hot air roared through the diner like a beast let loose. Most people bolted for the back exit, but Ava looked back toward the booth and saw the man slumped over unconscious, his head resting against the shattered glass. She felt fear clamp around her chest. She did not think. She moved. Ava ran into the smoke-filled front room, her shoes slipping on glass and spilled coffee. She grabbed the man under the arms and pulled with everything she had. He was heavier than he looked, and her muscles screamed in protest, but the ceiling above the booth groaned with the sound of metal bending. She dragged him toward the door as dust and sparks rained down. The heat pressed onto her skin like a warning. The man stirred slightly, his lips parting. Ava leaned closer to hear him. His voice rasped like gravel. Do not trust them. Then he went completely still. Ava stumbled outside with him just as part of the diner ceiling collapsed in a burst of sparks behind them. She coughed violently, eyes watering, forcing herself not to panic. A fire truck siren wailed somewhere in the distance. Rain hit her face in cold, sharp drops. Neighbors were shouting. Someone called out that help was coming. Ava knelt beside the man, pressing her hand to his shoulder. "Stay awake," she whispered, even though she did not know if he heard her. But when she looked down again, he was gone. Not gone like unconscious. Gone like vanished. Just moments earlier, he had been lying at her feet with rain hitting his hoodie. Now, all that remained was the burned silicone bracelet lying in a puddle, its warped edges catching the light from the growing fire. Ava stared at it in disbelief. He could not have stood up and walked away. Not in the seconds she had looked up at the collapsing diner. Not in his condition. But the street around her was empty except for flashing lights and drifting smoke. She picked up the bracelet, turning it in her hand. It felt warm, as if it held some memory of the flames. The fire crew arrived, EMTs rushing toward her, asking questions she barely processed. Had she seen anyone else inside? Was she injured? What exactly happened before the explosion? A police officer gently held her elbow to steady her, but Ava kept glancing at the street as if the man might reappear. When they asked for his name, she could only shake her head. She did not know who he was. She did not know why he had vanished. All she knew was that he had looked terrified before everything exploded and that he had said not to trust them. Them who? She had no idea. Later, when the chaos settled and the fire was under control, Ava sat on the curb with a blanket around her shoulders, shivering though she was no longer cold. She opened her hand and looked again at the bracelet. Something about it tugged at her, an instinct that told her this night was far from over. She slid it into her pocket just as an officer was checking the security cameras across the street. He called out to his partner that one of the cameras had captured the entire explosion, including the moment Ava dragged the man from the fire. She did not realize this small detail would matter. She did not know that in less than 24 hours the footage would go viral across the internet and that the world would start looking for the man she saved. She only knew her life had just changed in a way she could not yet understand. Ava Collins woke the next morning with the ache of smoke still clinging to her lungs and the faint smell of burned insulation tangled in her hair. She barely slept after the fire. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flash of the explosion again, heard the man's voice whispering, "Do not trust them," and felt the weight of his unconscious body dragging across the diner floor. When her alarm buzzed at 6:30, she turned it off before the second ring, careful not to wake Harper, who was curled up on the thin mattress beside her. Their apartment was little more than a converted attic above a laundromat with one window that barely opened and a heater that rattled like it was dying. Ava slipped out of bed and made coffee using the cheapest instant brand she could afford. She watched the steam rise from the chipped mug and tried to steady her breathing. Part of her wanted to call the diner to explain everything again, to insist that the fire was not her fault, that she had only tried to help someone who would have died if she had not dragged him outside. But the owner made it clear last night that the repairs would cost money and someone needed to be responsible. He did not say outright that he blamed her, but the way he looked at her weary and frustrated told her everything. Money was thin, insurance paperwork took time, and she was the easiest one to cut loose. She checked her phone. No messages, no missed calls, nothing from work, nothing from anyone. Harper stirred, blinking sleepily. "Did you dream again?" Ava shook her head. "No, I am fine." Harper sat up and pushed her curly hair out of her face. "You smell like smoke." "Yeah, I know." They shared a quiet moment before the world's noise returned in the form of the laundromat machines thumping below their floor. Harper noticed the folded blanket from last night thrown over the chair. "You stayed out there for hours. What did the police say? That the fire is still under investigation. That they need statements. That they want me to go back later." Harper frowned. "Did they find the guy you saved?" Ava hesitated. "No, he disappeared. Like vanished." Harper stared at her as if she was joking. Ava pulled the silicone bracelet out of her pocket. She held it up between her fingers. Burned, warped one edge melted like a candle left too close to a flame. "This is all he left behind." Harper leaned closer. "That looks expensive." "Not really, just weird." Harper turned it around, squinting at the inside. Then her eyes widened. "Wait, look." She pointed at a tiny embossed mark almost invisible under the melted surface. It looked like a letter, a stylized W. Harper whispered, "Is that Ward Technologies?" Ava blinked. "Ward, as in the company with the 40-floor tower downtown. They make everything tech. Phones, security systems, those smart wristbands." Harper nodded excitedly. "They make silicone products, too." "What if he works there?" Ava shook her head. "Maybe. Or maybe it is a coincidence. It is Seattle. Lots of people wear tech-branded stuff." Harper was not convinced. "I think it means something. Everything means something with you." Ava teased softly, trying to lighten the mood. But the truth was the bracelet unsettled her. The burned edges, the man's fear, the way he vanished before EMTs arrived. At noon, she walked Harper to the bus stop. Harper clutched her backpack straps the way she always did when she felt uneasy. "Are you going to be okay today?" Ava smiled, even though she did not feel steady. "Totally. I just need to talk to work, maybe check on the diner, maybe answer a few police questions." Harper kicked the sidewalk gravel. "You should rest. You look tired." "I am always tired, but I will be fine." The bus pulled up. Harper hesitated before stepping on. Be careful. Always. When Harper left, the street grew too quiet. Ava shoved her hands into her coat pockets and made her way toward the diner. She expected boarded windows and police tape, but the scene was strangely normal except for the charred front wall and workers already clearing debris. The owner shook his head when she approached. His voice was heavy. Look, Ava, I know you tried to help, but insurance is a nightmare. I need to repair fast. I cannot pay 2 people for shifts we do not have. So that is it, she asked quietly. That is it? He did not look angry, just exhausted. Things happen. Bills do not stop. You understand. She did, but that did not make it easier. She walked away each step feeling heavier. Without the diner job, the rent would crumble. Groceries would stretch thinner. Harper's school supplies would be harder to afford. By the time she reached downtown, she felt hollow. She barely noticed the buzz around her. People walking fast, phones pressed to their ears. Screens on bus stops showing local headlines. At first, she ignored it, until she caught her own face on a video thumbnail on a digital billboard near the intersection. Wait, that is me. The screen showed grainy footage from the traffic camera across the street from the diner. A smoky figure dragging a man from flames. Then the caption appeared. Unknown, waitress rescues unidentified man from explosion near waterfront. Video spreads across social media. Dewdrops gathered in the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had no idea the camera caught anything. She had no idea people were watching. She turned away from the billboard, trying to disappear into the crowd. She felt exposed, not proud, not brave, just overwhelmed. And still, the man she saved was nowhere. She wandered into a nearby library to sit and breathe. A librarian gave her a gentle nod, the kind people give someone who looks like they have had a long night. Ava sat at a table and took out the silicone bracelet again. Turning it in her hands, she felt that same instinct that something about the night before did not add up. If the bracelet really belonged to Ward Technologies, why would a man wearing it be bleeding, terrified, running from explosions? And why would he vanish instead of seeking help? Most of all, why would he tell her not to trust them? Them who? She whispered the words without realizing. A woman next to her glanced curiously, but Ava offered a faint smile and tucked the bracelet back into her pocket. She stared out the window at the distant silhouette of Ward Technologies' tower reflecting against the gray Seattle sky. She felt a quiet pull toward it without knowing why. Maybe it was the bracelet. Maybe it was the unanswered questions. Or maybe it was the simple truth that for once something in her life felt bigger than hardship and overdue bills and the constant fear of losing everything. Something had begun the night of the fire. Something she did not understand yet, and she had a feeling the man she saved was the key to all of it. Ethan Ward woke to the sting of antiseptic and the low hum of industrial ventilation, the kind used in secure private facilities rather than public hospitals. His vision blurred at the edges as he blinked up at the ceiling of the safe house, a converted penthouse sealed off from the rest of the building by 2 biometric doors and a full security sweep. His ribs throbbed from the explosion. His head pulsed from the blow he took before stumbling into the diner. But beneath the physical pain was something stranger. Heavier, something he had not felt in years. He had been saved. By a stranger. By a girl who should have run like everyone else, but instead ran toward him. Ava. He whispered the name under his breath, even though he was sure she had never told him. He remembered her voice faintly, the warmth of her hands pulling him through smoke, the look in her eyes when he tried to warn her not to trust them. Them. His company, his board, his enemies. The lines were blurring, and he knew it. A soft beep sounded as the door to the room unlocked. Madison Ward stepped inside with her dark hair tied back and worry written across her face. She was 4 years younger than Ethan, but had always been the one to read him best. She paused at the sight of him awake. Thank God. Ethan rubbed his forehead. How long have I been here? Since last night. The doctor said you lost consciousness from adrenaline collapse. What happened? Ethan's jaw tightened. Someone tried to kill me. Again. Madison swallowed hard, but she did not look surprised. The tensions within Ward Technologies had been escalating for months. Ethan had pushed too hard against certain board members blocking projects he considered unethical. Men like Cole Harrington preferred profit over integrity, and men like Cole did not lose gracefully. Madison sat beside him. "Security found you near the waterfront. There was an explosion. We thought—" She stopped herself. "We thought you were gone." Ethan flinched at the memory. I would have been if she had not pulled me out. Madison's eyes sharpened. She. The girl. Madison tapped her tablet and turned the screen toward him. It showed the traffic camera footage playing on loop. Rain, fire, smoke, and then the unmistakable image of Ava dragging Ethan's limp body out of the collapsing diner. Ethan pushed himself upright despite the pain slicing through his side. That is her. Who is she? Madison enlarged the image. Ava Collins, 23. Waitress. Lives in a low-income area near Pike Street. Works 2 jobs. No criminal record. Excellent grades in high school. Dropped out of community college after her mother died. Younger sister named Harper. Ethan felt something tug sharply inside him. She risked her life for me. Madison nodded. And the whole city is calling her a hero now. Social media loves her. But there is something else. She zoomed in further. The bracelet on the ground beside Ava caught the light as she picked it up. Ethan's pulse kicked. The prototype, the only one of its kind, a wearable encryption key linked to his private servers. If Cole or any board member got their hands on it, they could access everything. The projects Ethan had hidden, the financial documents proving misconduct, the files that could topple half the board. Ethan swallowed hard. If she has that bracelet, then Cole will come after her. Madison nodded grimly. Which means we have to reach her first. Ethan pushed the blanket aside. I need to talk to her. Not yet. You cannot appear in public right now. The board already thinks your absence is suspicious and Cole is stirring up rumors. They are holding an emergency meeting tomorrow. If you show up injured, they will spin it as incompetence. Let them. Madison crossed her arms. Ethan, you survive by being smarter than them, not louder. Stay hidden. Let security bring her. Ethan hated every part of this plan, but he had no choice. If Ava was dragged into the political war inside Ward Technologies, she would be chewed apart. He nodded reluctantly. Bring her. But do not tell her who I am. Not yet. Madison raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because she saved a man in a hoodie, not a billionaire with a target on his back. I want her to meet the former before I force her to face the latter. Madison studied him for a long moment, as if seeing something she had not seen in years. You care. He looked away. She saved my life. That is not what I meant. He did not answer. Meanwhile, across the city, Ava sat in the library staring at the bracelet again, unaware she had become the focal point of a corporate storm. While she whispered questions to herself, Board Director Cole Harrington stood in his glass corner office 30 floors above the city, watching the viral video play on his phone. Cole was tall, polished, and calculating in a way that made people feel unsafe without knowing why. He rewound the footage and zoomed into the bracelet Ava held. He recognized it. He recognized its significance. And he realized Ethan must still be alive. Cole's jaw flexed. He called his assistant. Find the girl. Now. Back in the safe house, Madison made another call. A quiet one. A secure one. 10 seconds later, a black SUV pulled away from the Ward Technologies tower headed toward Ava's neighborhood. Ethan watched from the window, though the rain blurred the lights. He wondered if Ava was scared today. If she had eaten. If she was replaying the explosion in her mind the way he was replaying her hands pulling him from the collapsing diner. Mostly, he wondered if she would hate him when she learned the truth about who he really was. Hours later, when the SUV approached Ava on the sidewalk, she froze, thinking she was being mistaken for someone else. Till a man in a suit stepped out and said her name calmly. Miss Collins, someone would like to speak with you. And that was how the girl nobody ever saw became the girl the most powerful people in Seattle suddenly needed. Ava Collins had never been inside a building as tall as Ward Technologies Tower. She stood at the base of it with the rain misting across her cheeks, craning her neck to see where the glass and steel disappeared into the gray Seattle sky. The black SUV that brought her here pulled away silently, leaving her alone in front of revolving doors that exhaled warm air and the faint scent of polished marble. A security officer inside gestured for her to enter with a courteous nod. Ava hesitated. She had spent her life serving coffee to people who worked in buildings like this, not walking into them as if she belonged. But there was no sense going back now, not when a stranger had spoken her name as if it were printed on some invisible list. She stepped inside. The lobby looked like another world. Glimmering floors, a towering digital art wall that shifted colors with every passing second, suits moving quickly with purpose, their shoes tapping in controlled rhythms. Ava clasped her hands together to hide how badly they were shaking. She felt painfully out of place, like a stain on something too expensive to touch. The receptionist glanced at her. Before Ava could introduce herself, her name appeared on the receptionist's screen. "Miss Collins, please wait. Someone will escort you." Someone! As if this were normal, as if she were expected. A woman approached from the elevators, walking with the confident grace of someone who had never once worried about rent or overdue bills. She wore a navy blazer, dark jeans, and a calm expression that gave nothing away. Ava recognized her immediately from last night's footage. Madison Ward, the billionaire's sister. The realization made Ava's legs weaken. Madison smiled warmly. "Ava, I am Madison. Thank you for coming." Ava tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I did not know I had a choice." Madison's smile tightened slightly, not unkind, but honest. "Fair point. Please follow me." They entered a private elevator with mirrored walls that showed Ava's nervous reflection from every angle. Her thrift store coat, her worn shoes, her anxious eyes. Madison pressed a code on the panel and the elevator rose so smoothly it felt like floating. Ava forced herself to breathe. She tried to rehearse what she would say. "Thank you for contacting me. I do not want trouble. I do not know anything." But every sentence felt too small. When the elevator doors opened, the air changed. Softer, warmer, almost domestic despite the glass walls. Madison led Ava into a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the whole city. Ava's breath caught. It was beautiful, unreachable, unfair. And then she saw him. Ethan Ward stood by the window wrapped in a light charcoal sweater with bandages peeking out near his collarbone. His hair was still a little disheveled from the night of the explosion. He turned when Madison cleared her throat. His gaze landed on Ava, like the room narrowed down to just her. Ava froze. Seeing him conscious was different from dragging him through smoke and debris, different from kneeling beside him in the rain. He looked too steady now, too composed for someone who had vanished from an active fire scene. Ethan took a step toward her but stopped as if afraid of overwhelming her. "Ava Collins," he said quietly. His voice held a warmth she did not expect. "Thank you for coming." She swallowed hard. "You sent people to my neighborhood." Madison jumped in gently. "We needed to talk to you about last night, about what happened." Ava looked between them. Her instincts tingled. There was more to this, more than gratitude or formality. Ethan studied her expression with a softness that made her chest tighten. "You saved my life," he said. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Ava quickly shook her head. "You do not owe me anything. I just did what anyone would do." Madison arched an eyebrow. "You would be surprised how few people do what you did." Ava felt heat rush to her cheeks. She looked down at her hands to compose herself. When she finally lifted her gaze, she noticed Ethan's wrist, bare, without the silicone bracelet, the one she found. She reached into her pocket and gently set the damaged band on the table between them. "I think this belongs to you." The moment Ethan saw it, a flicker of emotion crossed his face, something raw and unguarded. He walked forward and picked it up with careful fingers. For a moment, he held the burned edges the way someone might hold a memory they were afraid to lose. Ava watched him and felt a strange heaviness pull at her again. He was not just relieved to have it back. He was hurting, for reasons she could not understand. Ethan set the bracelet down and met her eyes. I dropped this when you pulled me out. I am glad you kept it safe." Ava hesitated. I did not know if it mattered. It mattered. He said it with such weight that Ava's pulse skipped. Madison cleared her throat again more gently this time. "We want to compensate you for what you went through. The fear, the danger, the job situation." Ava instantly shook her head. "I do not want money." Ethan studied her carefully. "Then tell us what you do want." Ava exhaled shakily. "I want everything to go back to normal. I want to stop being scared. I want to make rent." Madison softened. "Maybe we can help without making you uncomfortable. We have openings in our cafeteria. Good pay, good hours, health insurance. If you want the job, it is yours today." Ava blinked. "Why?" Ethan answered before Madison could. "Because you deserve better than what the world has given you so far, and because offering you a job is the least invasive way we can support you without crossing your boundaries." The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her like warmth she did not know she had been missing. She swallowed hard, overwhelmed. "I will think about it." Ethan nodded, accepting her uncertainty without pressure. The silence that followed was fragile quiet, full of unspoken things. Their eyes met again. Neither looked away. Something pulsed in the air between them, something that made Ava's breath stutter and Ethan's shoulders lower in a subtle exhale. Romantic tension took shape like a shadow cast between two people, standing just close enough to feel drawn in but not close enough to touch. Madison finally stepped back. "I will give you two a moment." When she left the room, Ava shifted her weight nervously. "I should go." Ethan nodded slowly, but his eyes lingered on her as if willing her to stay a little longer. "Thank you for saving me," he said softly. His voice held something unspoken, something that made Ava's heart flutter in confusion. She left the room trembling not from fear, but from something unfamiliar and dangerously warm. She did not know that the moment she walked out, Ethan watched her until the door closed completely and the world outside his window suddenly felt less distant than it had in years. Ava Collins walked out of Ward Technologies' tower feeling like she had accidentally stepped into someone else's life. The rain misted against her cheeks as she reached the sidewalk, but she barely felt it. Her heartbeat was still unsteady from being in that room, from standing in front of Ethan Ward and hearing him speak to her as if her existence mattered. She tried to steady her breathing, reminding herself of all the things waiting at home overdue, rent, heating bills, Harper's college fund that existed only as a dream. Reality had a way of pulling her back down, but something inside her had shifted. Ethan had offered her a job. A real job. A job that paid more than minimum wage and came with health insurance. She wanted to believe it was simple gratitude, but nothing about Ethan Ward felt simple. She pressed a hand to her chest where a nervous flutter had not stopped since she first saw him in the tower. She told herself it was shock. She told herself it was the memory of fire and danger. But the truth sat quietly inside her. She felt something when he looked at her. Something she did not have a name for. Back in her neighborhood, the streets were lined with old cars and cracked sidewalks. Ava walked quickly toward her apartment building, thinking about what she would tell Harper. Harper was waiting at the door, pacing with her backpack still slung over one shoulder. "Did something happen?" "You look weird." Ava forced a tiny smile. "What does weird mean?" Harper squinted. "Like you saw a ghost, but also maybe won the lottery." Ava let out a shaky laugh. "That is alarmingly accurate." They stepped inside their apartment. The heater rattled as if annoyed by the cold. Harper tossed her backpack on the couch and crossed her arms. "Okay, tell me everything." Ava sat down at the small table. "They offered me a job." Harper's eyes widened. "A job? At Ward Technologies." Ava nodded slowly. "In the cafeteria. Good hours, good pay, benefits." Harper dropped into the chair across from her. "Ava, this could change everything." Ava rubbed her forehead. "It feels too good." Harper looked confused. "Too good compared to what? Compared to every other thing that ever happened to us?" Ava shrugged helplessly. "People like us do not get rescued by billion-dollar buildings." Harper held her gaze gently, but with surprising firmness. "Maybe for once, the world is trying to give you a break." Maybe you should let it." The sincerity in her sister's voice tightened Ava's throat. She wanted a break. She wanted one so badly that it scared her. She wanted stability for Harper. She wanted to stop choosing between groceries and gas. She wanted her life to stop shrinking year after year. But she also knew that stepping into someone else's world came with risks. Especially when that someone was Ethan Ward, the man who had whispered, "Do not trust them," moments before passing out. Later that night, Ava sat on the edge of her bed, holding the silicone bracelet between her fingers. The burned edges felt rough and strange, like a secret she had no right to touch. She wondered again why Ethan reacted the way he did when he saw it, as if it was not just an accessory, but a piece of something bigger. Her thumb brushed over the letter W and she felt a strange tug again, something in her chest urging her toward a path she could not see clearly yet. The next morning, she returned to Ward Technologies' tower. She rehearsed what she would say to Madison and Ethan. "I appreciate the offer. I accept the job. I will work hard, I promise." She wasn't prepared for how nervous she felt stepping back into the lobby, the polished marble reflecting her worn sneakers. A man in a staff uniform greeted her and handed her a name badge. Ava Collins, Cafeteria Services. Ward Technologies. Ava swallowed hard. Her name on a badge felt like someone had placed a hand on her back and gently pushed her forward. The cafeteria was far nicer than anything she expected. Clean, efficient, modern. Her new manager, a friendly older woman named Rosa, welcomed her with a firm handshake. "Heard you saved someone last night," she said with a warm smile. Ava flushed. "I just did what anyone would do." Rosa shook her head. "Honey, I have lived in this city for 60 years. People do not run into danger. They run away from it." Ava did not know what to say to that, so she focused on learning her tasks. The morning passed quietly. She washed trays, prepped the beverage station, refilled cutlery. Simple work, but stable. Safe. Honest. Every now and then, she felt eyes on her. Office workers whispered in corners. "That is the girl from the video. She saved someone from the fire. Right? That diner explosion. Have you seen the footage?" Ava kept her head down, focusing on her work. She did not want attention. She wanted anonymity, but anonymity no longer wanted her. Near lunchtime, she felt someone's gaze again, but this time it was different. Warmer. Pulling. She looked up. Ethan stood near the glass railing of the mezzanine level above the cafeteria. He wore a slate gray shirt and dark slacks, his posture tense, his eyes focused entirely on her. Ava's breath hitched. Ethan gave a small nod, one that said, "I see you," without drawing attention. Heat climbed into her cheeks and she quickly looked down, pretending to rearrange napkins, though her hands trembled slightly. Romantic tension moved between them like a quiet electric current, subtle but unmistakably real. She did not know why he was looking at her like that. She did not know why her stomach felt unsteady when he did, but she knew this moment meant something. Rosa followed Ava's gaze and smiled knowingly. "So, that is why they hired you so fast?" Ava nearly dropped an entire stack of napkins. "What? No, that is not no, he's just—" "He thanked me for helping him." Rosa hummed in a way that sounded suspiciously amused. "Uh-huh. Sure, sweetheart." At the end of her shift, Madison met her near the elevators. "How was your first day?" Ava nodded shyly. "Good. Better than I expected." Madison's face softened. "Ethan was glad you accepted the offer." Ava's heart did something it shouldn't have. "He was?" she asked quietly. Madison nodded. "He wants to make sure you and your sister are safe." Ava felt a pinch of confusion. Safe from what Madison hesitated, choosing her words carefully. There are things happening inside the company. Power struggles. People who are angry that Ethan is still in control. And what does that have to do with me? Madison studied her with sincere worry. "You rescued the most powerful man in this building. That makes you visible, and visibility can be dangerous." Ava swallowed hard, suddenly aware that her world had shifted again. The job was not just an opportunity. It was a shield, a lifeline, a doorway, one that might save her family, and one that might also lead her into a life more complicated than anything she had ever imagined. Ava Collins did not notice the shift at first. On her second week working in the Ward Technologies cafeteria, she had fallen into a rhythm that felt almost peaceful. She arrived early each morning, prepared the breakfast station, greeted employees who smiled politely, and kept her distance from the upper floors where decisions and dangers lived. But something in the building had begun to change. Conversations hushed when she walked by. People glanced over their shoulders before whispering again. A few phones lifted slightly angled in her direction before snapping back down. She thought she was imagining it until Rosa pulled her aside near the industrial dishwasher. "Honey, something is going around." Ava blinked nervously. "What do you mean?" Rosa tried to be gentle. "People are talking, saying things." Ava felt her stomach twist. Talking about what? Rosa hesitated as if searching for the kindest version of the truth. "They are saying you are involved with someone upstairs." Like involved. Ava froze, a bitter shock blooming under her skin. "That is not true." Rosa nodded. "I know, honey. But rumors do not need truth, they just need a spark." Ava clenched the counter to steady herself. She thought of Ethan, the way he looked at her from the mezzanine, the warmth in his eyes, the careful distance he kept. They had barely spoken since her first day. There was nothing to fuel these lies, nothing but curiosity and power, and the way people loved tearing down someone who came from nothing. Rosa squeezed her shoulder. "Keep your head down. It will pass." But it did not pass. It grew. At lunchtime, a group of employees filmed themselves behind their coffee cups laughing at something on a phone screen. Ava tried not to look, but when one of them swung his camera toward her, she heard the words low but unmistakable. "Mistress." Vias, es hart she, lurched painfully. She hurried into the supply room, trying to breathe through the sudden heat in her eyes. She leaned against the shelves, pressing a hand to her mouth. Why would people say something like that? Why would they want to? She thought desperately of Harper going to school, checking social media. Harper crying quietly if she saw anything cruel. Ava could not let this touch her sister. She pulled out her phone to warn Harper, but her notifications exploded all at once. TikTok clips. Edits of her pulling Ethan from the fire overlaid with dramatic music. Comments speculating about her relationship with a stranger they had never met. Are they dating? She is with him. Does anyone else think she looks like the type? Ava's throat closed. Panic rose in her chest. She shut off her phone, but the damage was already done. She stepped back into the kitchen, trying to hold herself together. But by now, too many eyes followed her, some curious, some mocking, some jealous. The cafeteria suddenly felt colder than the Seattle rain outside. Later that afternoon, Madison appeared at the entrance of the cafeteria and motioned for Ava to follow her. Ava's hands trembled as she set her apron aside and walked toward the elevator. Madison said nothing until the doors closed. "I am so sorry this is happening." Ava bit the inside of her cheek to keep her voice steady. "People are lying about me. They think I am with Ethan. They said I am—" She could not finish it. Madison nodded with quiet understanding. "Someone is stirring this deliberately. This is not normal office gossip." Ava opened her mouth to ask who, but the answer hit her before she could form the question. "Cole Harrington." Madison's silence confirmed it. They stepped into a quiet hallway away from the glass offices. Madison turned to her gently. "Cole wants Ethan out. Any scandal, any distraction, any disruption helps him. And what does ruining my life accomplish?" Ava whispered. Madison sighed. "He wants Ethan isolated. If people think Ethan favors you even a little, it becomes ammunition." Ava shook her head in disbelief. "I did nothing wrong." Madison placed a steady hand on her arm. "I know, and Ethan knows. But the board listens to Cole more than you think." Before Ava could answer, she heard footsteps behind them. Heavy, purposeful. Ethan appeared at the far end of the hall, his expression dark and unreadable, the kind of expression that made entire boardrooms fall silent. When he saw Ava's tear-streaked cheeks, something inside him shifted sharply. "Ava, are you all right?" She tried to nod, but her voice betrayed her. "People are saying things about me, things that are not true." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Come with me." Madison hesitated. "Ethan, not here." If Cole sees you defending her, it will get worse." Ethan looked at his sister, then at Ava, torn between fury and caution. He lowered his voice. "Ava, please look at me." She lifted her eyes reluctantly. In them, Ethan saw everything she was trying so hard to hide: humiliation, fear, the crushing weight of a reputation too fragile to survive, lies. Ethan stepped closer, but stopped a respectful distance away. "I only know one truth. You are the person who ran toward fire. You are the person who saved my life. Nothing they say changes that." Ava's breath shook. "Then why does it hurt so much?" "Because lies always hurt more when you are good," he said softly. Madison touched Ethan's arm, signaling that Cole was approaching. Ethan exhaled slowly, turning his fury into composure. "Ava, if anyone threatens you, you come to me. If anyone hurts you, you tell me you are not alone." His words wrapped around her like a lifeline, but before she could answer, her phone buzzed. It was Harper. She answered quickly, stepping aside. Harper's voice broke immediately. "Ava, someone posted things about you at school. People are saying horrible stuff. I saw a clip. I did not know what to say. I hate them. I hate them." Ava closed her eyes and pressed her forehead to the wall, trying not to cry again. "It is okay, Harper. I promise it is okay. But it was not okay. Not for Harper. Not for her. Not for the life she had fought so hard to build from scraps." When she hung up, Ethan was watching her with worry so deep it almost frightened her. "Ava, I am going to fix this," he said quietly. She shook her head, defeated. "No, no more fixing, no more attention. I just want them to stop hurting my sister." Ethan stepped forward before he could stop himself, his voice low and controlled. "I will not let anyone harm you. Not in this building. Not anywhere." And that was the moment Ava realized something terrifying. The rumors were lies, but the way she felt when Ethan spoke those words was not. Ava Collins did not know why she agreed to meet Ethan Ward after her shift. Maybe it was exhaustion from the rumors, or the way Harper's voice shook on the phone, or the way Ethan looked at her earlier as if he could feel every bruise the lies had left on her. Or maybe it was something quieter, something she kept trying to deny, something that made her pulse quicken whenever she heard his voice. The cafeteria had emptied for the night. The building hummed with the soft, mechanical heartbeat of a skyscraper settling into evening. Ava stepped out the back entrance expecting one of Ethan's security staff, but instead, she saw Ethan himself standing beneath a street lamp, the glow catching in the damp strands of his hair. He looked like he had been waiting a long time for her. He straightened when she approached, but his expression was gentler than she expected. Ava hesitated a few feet away, her hands trembling inside her coat pockets. "You should not be out here," she whispered. "People will see you." Ethan's voice was low. "I do not care who sees me right now. I care that you are hurting." The sincerity in his tone almost unraveled her. She looked down at the wet pavement, trying to hold herself together. "I do not know why all this is happening. I did not ask for any of it. I did not want attention. I just wanted to help someone. And now people think I am—" She could not say the word. Ethan stepped closer but still kept a careful, respectful distance. "What they are saying is cruel and deliberate. It is meant to break you. But why me?" she whispered. "I am nobody." Ethan's jaw flexed. "That is the first thing you need to understand. You are not nobody. Not to me. Not to them." She frowned, looking up. "Them. Who is them?" Ethan inhaled slowly, and then she saw it the moment he decided to stop protecting her from the truth. The moment he realized lies could hurt her more than the shadows he had tried to shield her from. "Come with me," he said quietly. "Somewhere private." She followed him into a side entrance that bypassed the main lobby. They walked through quiet halls until he opened a door to a private meeting room overlooking the waterfront. The city lights shimmered on the water, casting reflections that flickered like firelight. Ava stood near the window, her arms wrapped around herself as if bracing for impact. Ethan closed the door. For a moment he said nothing. He seemed to be choosing his words with precision. "Ava, what I am about to tell you cannot leave this room." She nodded. I have no reason to tell anyone anything. Ethan exhaled. The explosion that night was not an accident. Ava's breath stilled. He looked at her with eyes full of seriousness. Someone tried to kill me, and they almost did. She took a step back, her hand gripping the edge of the table for support. Why? How could anyone want to kill you? You are Ethan Ward, the CEO, the man on magazine covers. Ethan gave a faint, humorless smile. Those things make me a target, not a shield. Ava felt a cold realization slide down her spine. But that night you said not to trust them. You meant people at your company, did you not? Ethan nodded once. The board is fractured. Some members want control over projects I refuse to approve, projects that could harm people, projects that should not exist. Cole Harrington is leading the group against me. He wants me out, permanently. Ava's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. But what does this have to do with me? Ethan rubbed a hand over his jaw, the tension etched deep. Because when you dragged me from that fire, you saved more than my life. You saved the only chance I have to expose them. Ava stared. I do not understand. Ethan reached into his pocket and took out the damaged silicone bracelet, the one she had returned to him. This is not just a bracelet. It holds encrypted access to files that prove their corruption. It was supposed to be destroyed in the explosion. They did not expect someone to run into the flames to save me. Ava looked at the burned edges, the melted curve blackened by heat. She suddenly understood the weight that had hung in Ethan's eyes when he held it, the grief, the fear, the gratitude threaded into a single expression. Ethan stepped closer, his voice soft. When you kept this safe, you saved everything I have been fighting to protect. Ava swallowed her fear. So Cole is targeting me because I have this. Ethan hesitated. Cole is targeting you because you were seen with me, because the rumors isolate you, hurt you, make you vulnerable. Ava closed her eyes, a tear slipping free. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to help someone. Ethan's voice broke slightly. And you did. You helped the wrong person in a very dangerous storm. Ava looked up, her eyes shining. Then, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why let me walk into this alone? Ethan flinched as if the question cut deeper than any wound. Because I was afraid. Afraid you would walk away from me if you knew the truth. Afraid you would think I dragged you into something you never asked for. Afraid you would hate me for it. The silence that followed was fragile. Ava took a shaky breath. I do not hate you, but I am scared. Ethan nodded. I know, and that is why I am finally telling you everything. Because you deserve the truth. Because you are already in danger just by being close to me. Because you deserve a choice. Ava studied him closely. His honesty, his vulnerability, the unguarded way he looked at her as if letting her see the parts of himself he showed no one. Something inside her softened, something warm and terrifying and undeniable. Romantic tension rose like a tide, pulling them toward each other even as fear pushed them apart. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Ava, I am trying to protect you, but I cannot do that if you keep standing alone. She swallowed the lump in her throat. And what do you want from me? Ethan stepped closer, gently, slowly, giving her time to pull away. I want the chance to keep you safe. I want the chance to prove that you matter to me far more than any rumor. I want the chance to stand beside you, not hide behind you. Ava's breath trembled. She did not move away. She did not speak, but her silence was an answer of its own. Ethan's expression softened, something like hope flickering in his eyes. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, we face it together. She looked at him, the weight of everything pressing down on her, and, for the first time since the explosion, she did not feel alone. Ava Collins woke the next morning exhausted but strangely steady, as if Ethan's confession had shifted something inside her. The truth was terrifying, but it was finally truth, and not the twisting shadows she had been stumbling through alone. For the first time since the diner explosion, she felt the faintest sense of direction, even if that direction looked like a storm waiting on the horizon. She made breakfast quietly while Harper packed her school bag. They ate together in their tiny kitchen, the heater rattling, the old window fogging from the steam. Harper watched her carefully, picking up on every flicker in Ava's face. "You came home late last night?" Ava stirred her oatmeal slowly. "Yeah, a lot happened at work." Harper frowned. Bad things. Complicated things. Harper did not push. That was one of the things Ava loved most about her sister. Harper could sense when Ava was drowning, but she always waited at the shore instead of dragging her deeper. After breakfast, Harper left for school, giving Ava a quick hug that lingered a second longer than usual. "Be safe, Ava. Promise me, I promise." Ava watched the bus drive off, then started walking to work. The morning air smelled faintly of rain, but there was something else threaded into it, something sharp that made her skin prickle without knowing why. She shook it off. The day began normally, the cafeteria filled with employees. Rosa offered her a warm smile. The whispers seemed quieter, or maybe Ava had learned to block them out. She worked through lunch without letting her mind drift too far toward Ethan, but she felt his presence somewhere in the building like electricity humming behind the walls. Around mid-afternoon, Madison pulled Ava aside with a concerned expression. "Ethan has a board meeting. He will be tied up for hours. Just keep to your routine today. Do not worry about anything outside your line of sight." Ava nodded, even though a thin thread of unease curled in her chest. Nothing outside her line of sight. She finished her shift and headed home earlier than usual, wanting to check on Harper. The walk home felt different. The sky dimming earlier than expected, a chill slithering through the air, a strange quiet hanging over her neighborhood as if everyone had gone inside early. When she reached her building, Ava saw the fire truck before she saw the flames. A wall of bright red lights cut through the dusk. Smoke curled from the second floor, her floor twisting into the air like a warning signal pointed straight at her. Ava broke into a run. "Harper," she whispered breathlessly. "Harper." She darted under the tape before anyone could stop her, but a firefighter grabbed her arm firmly. "Miss, you cannot go in there. My sister is upstairs. 16 years old. She is inside." The firefighter's face shifted instantly from protocol to urgency. He called out to his team, then turned back to Ava. "Which apartment?" 2B. Before he could respond, a voice behind them yelled, "Hey, someone is at the window!" Ava spun toward the building and her heart nearly stopped. Harper was pressed against their apartment window, coughing violently, struggling to stay upright. Harper screamed Ava. The firefighter shouted orders while another rushed a ladder toward the side of the building. But Ava saw something else. The door to their unit was open slightly. Smoke pouring out in a strange rhythm, not like a normal fire, like something had caused the airflow to shift unnaturally. Gas leak. It hit her instantly. Coal. The gas line. The rumor Madison's warning. She felt her knees threaten to collapse. Someone set this up. The ladder rose agonizingly slowly. Harper swayed, coughing harder, one hand gripping the window frame. Ava felt helpless rage claw its way up her throat. "Let me go up." "You cannot. Stay back." A firefighter climbed quickly, but the smoke thickened fiercely. A burst of heat flexed against the glass as if the fire had grown teeth. Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it until the buzzing turned to ringing. She answered without checking. Ethan's voice, sharp, breathless, terrified. "Where are you?" Ava could hardly breathe. "My apartment." "There is a fire. Harper is still inside." She heard him inhale sharply. Then his voice hardened in a way she had never heard. "Do not move. I am coming." She hung up without thinking, as if instinctively knowing he would move heaven and earth to get to her. Sirens wailed. Flames crackled. Harper coughed again, pressing her forehead to the cold glass. The firefighter was halfway up the ladder, but not fast enough, not nearly fast enough. Then a black SUV screeched to a stop so abruptly the tires screamed. Ethan Ward jumped out before the vehicle fully halted, almost slipping on the wet pavement, but catching himself with a focus fueled not by logic, but by pure fear. He sprinted straight toward Ava. She spun around when she heard him. "Ethan!" Her voice broke. He reached her in seconds, grabbing her shoulders, steadying her trembling body. "Are you hurt?" "No. No, but Harper. Upstairs. Window." Ethan turned toward the flames, and every rational part of him seemed to evaporate. his voice lowered dangerously. "Who did this?" Ava shook her head, tears spilling helplessly. "I do not know." Ethan clenched his jaw, but he already suspected, and suspicion felt like gasoline in his veins. Without hesitation, he ran toward the building. Ava grabbed his sleeve. "You cannot. You will get killed." Ethan turned to her, his eyes burning with a fierce determination she had never seen before. "You ran into the fire for me. Let me do the same for you." Before she could respond, he pulled away, rushing toward the firefighters. They recognized him instantly and tried to block him, but Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "That is my building. That is my family. Let me help." The firefighter who had spoken to Ava earlier hesitated, recognizing desperation that could not be faked. "Sir, it is too dangerous." Ethan grabbed a loose oxygen mask from the truck. "Tell me how to get to 2B. The firefighter cursed under his breath, then pointed. "Hallway on the right. Third door. Keep low. Do not breathe the upper smoke." Ethan nodded, pulled the mask over his face, and charged inside. Ava screamed after him, but he was already swallowed by the darkness of the stairwell. Smoke throbbed against the windows. The crowd watched in horror. Ava pressed both hands to her mouth, tears streaming as she prayed for 2 lives at once. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, through the shattered entryway, she saw movement. A shadow. A shape. Ethan emerged, stumbling, coughing, but holding Harper in his arms, her head tucked into his shoulder. Ava's knees gave out in sheer relief. Firefighters rushed them, immediately grabbing Harper and guiding Ethan out into fresh air. Harper collapsed into Ava's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Ava clutched her as if anchoring her to the world. Ethan leaned against the ambulance, his lungs struggling, but his gaze locked on Ava, making sure she was safe. As the paramedics checked Harper, someone yelled from the crowd, "Hey, there is something on the ground." Ava turned. Something small glinted near Ethan's feet. She picked it up carefully. The silicone bracelet. Except now it was even more damaged, melted further by the second fire edges, charred, curling inward. Ethan saw what she held. Their eyes met, and in that moment she finally understood. It was not just a symbol of his survival. It was a symbol of everything they were now tangled in. Whoever set the first fire had now set a second, and Ethan was willing to burn for her just as she had burned for him. Ethan Ward refused the ambulance. The paramedics insisted. His lungs needed monitoring, his skin showed signs of heat exposure, and his pulse was too fast to be safe. But Ethan stood straighter, wiped the soot from his jaw, and said with quiet steel, "I have a board meeting." Harper was safely wrapped in a blanket, sitting beside Ava on the curb, trembling but conscious. Ava looked up at Ethan, still shaken from everything that happened. "You cannot go anywhere like this. You need a hospital." Ethan met her eyes with a gentleness that contradicted the fury burning beneath his skin. "If I do not go now, Cole wins." Ava opened her mouth to protest, but Ethan placed a steady, warm hand on her shoulder. "Stay with Harper. I will be back soon. I promise." The fire truck's sirens faded into the night as Ethan climbed into the SUV waiting nearby. Madison slid in beside him, eyes wide with fear when she saw the scorch marks on his clothes. "Ethan, what happened?" He stared ahead, jaw tight. Someone sabotaged her apartment. Madison paled. Harper. She is alive thanks to Ava, and thanks to whoever taught Harper to scream loud enough to alert the neighbors. Madison swallowed. Cole. It has to be him. Ethan did not answer, but the silence between them spoke louder than any confirmation. The SUV sliced through downtown Seattle until it reached the Ward Technologies Tower, a monolith of glass reflecting the storm building in Ethan's chest. The building was mostly empty at this hour, but the boardroom lights blazed. Cole Harrington had insisted on an emergency meeting, and of course every board member rushed to attend. Drama attracted these men more than innovation ever did. The elevator ride felt suffocating. Madison kept glancing at Ethan as if afraid he might collapse, but he stood rigid, staring at the doors with controlled fury. When the elevator opened, the air in the hallway tightened with tension. Voices echoed from the boardroom, heated, condescending, predatory. Cole's voice rose above the rest. It is unacceptable behavior. It's unacceptable. Ethan has not shown up for 2 days. 2 days. We all know what he is doing with the girl. Someone murmured in agreement. Board members paced the length of the glass room while Cole leaned against the head of the table, hands placed confidently on the glossy surface like a man who believed he already owned the building. The door swung open with a sharp crack. Every head turned. Ethan Ward stood in the doorway, his clothes still dusted with ash, his hair disheveled, his skin marked with fading soot. The room went silent in a collective gasp. Ethan stepped inside, closing the door behind him with deliberate calm. Cole recovered first, smoothing his expression into a mask of false concern. "Ethan, my God, what happened to you? Are you aware the entire company is in chaos because of your absence?" Ethan walked to the table, not bothering to sit. His voice was deceptively even. "I was at a fire." Cole blinked, feigning confusion. "Another incident. How unfortunate. I hope this one was not caused by the same distractions." He did not say Ava's name, but the sneer in his tone carved it anyway. Ethan's hands curled into fists at his sides. "You want to talk about distractions? Let us talk about the real one." The board shifted uncomfortably as Ethan slapped something onto the table. "A USB drive." Madison stepped forward, tapping the tablet in her hand. The screen behind them lit up, displaying a grainy video, a timestamp, a parking garage, a group of men speaking quietly, Cole's voice unmistakable among them. Ethan's spine stiffened. "You hired a crew to sabotage the gas line at my building." Cole's mask cracked for a fraction of a second. Then he forced a laugh. "You are delusional. You forged this." But Madison tapped the screen again, showing footage of Cole wiring money through a shell company. A second file. Phone transcripts. A third. Messages between Cole and hired contractors. The final blow came from a security officer who stepped into the room, a printed report in hand. We traced the tampering to an individual linked to Mr. Harrington. Cole's face drained of color. "This is absurd. You cannot trust this." Ethan leaned forward, every word edged with controlled fire. "A 16-year-old girl almost died tonight. A girl who has nothing to do with corporate politics. You crossed a line. You put innocent people in danger, and you thought no one would find out." Cole backed away, his breath quickening. "You cannot prove intent. This will not hold." Ethan lifted his eyes, cold and unwavering. "Watch me." He turned toward the board. "Effective immediately, Cole Harrington is suspended pending full investigation. The audit files are already in federal hands." The color drained from 3 other board members who were part of Cole's faction. One of them spoke shakily. "Ethan, perhaps we should discuss this privately." Ethan shook his head. "No. We will discuss it right here in front of everyone. Because secrecy is why this company rotted. Because fear is how Cole manipulated you. And because I will not allow this company to be run by men who use violence to solve disagreement." Cole tried one last tactic. "You cannot fire me. I have influence. Investors. Press." Ethan looked him dead in the eye. "You had influence. Now you have handcuffs." The 2 security officers stepped forward, finally revealing the quiet instructions Ethan had given them on the way in. Cole lunged toward the exit, but the officers restrained him easily. "Let go of me!" he shouted, panicked. "This is illegal!" Ethan turned away, refusing to give Cole the dignity of a final glance. "Drag him out." The officers escorted Cole out of the boardroom. As he shouted threats no one believed anymore. When the doors finally shut, the board members remained frozen, unsure whether to sit or stand or breathe. Ethan straightened. His voice regained its calm, decisive tone. "We will begin restoring this company's ethics. This time for real. No more corner cutting. No more extortion. No more cruelty hidden behind polished glass." The board members nodded one by one, some ashamed, some relieved. Madison stepped closer, touching Ethan's shoulder lightly. "You did it." Ethan's eyes softened only slightly. "It is not over, not until Ava and Harper are safe." He lifted his phone and typed a short message to security. "Make sure they are moved to a secure unit tonight. No questions, no delays. As he left the boardroom, Madison followed him. Ethan paused in the hallway, pressing his palm briefly against the glass wall to steady his breathing. Madison whispered, "You should rest." You inhaled thick smoke. Ethan lowered his hand slowly. "Not until I see if she is okay. Not until I know she is safe." His voice softened in a way that made Madison's heart ache with recognition. He was already choosing Ava. Not because of debt, not because of gratitude, but because she had become something he could not walk away from. Ethan Ward left the boardroom with the world's noise pounding in his ears, but none of it compared to the single overwhelming thought circling in his mind like a heartbeat he could not silence. Ava. He needed to see her, needed to know she was safe, needed proof that she and Harper were breathing in clean air, not choking on smoke or fear, or the consequences of his war with Cole Harrington. The SUV barely stopped before Ethan stepped out in front of the emergency relocation building where Madison had arranged temporary housing for Ava and Harper. Ethan's clothes still carried the faint, smoky scent of the fire, but he did not bother changing. Every minute felt like a lifetime. Security guided him up a quiet elevator to the 12th floor, a residential suite used for emergency corporate protection. The hallway lights glowed softly. The door at the end was cracked open. Inside, he heard low murmurs, the kind that came from exhaustion, not conversation. Ethan paused at the doorway, gripping the frame to steady himself. Ava sat on the couch with Harper curled against her side, wrapped in a clean blanket. Harper's eyes were red from crying, but calmer. Ava's clothes were still dusted with soot, her hair tangled slightly from the chaos, but she looked whole, alive. Ethan exhaled shakily. Ava looked up the moment he stepped inside. Her breath caught as if she had been waiting for him without realizing it. "There you are," she whispered. He swallowed hard. "I came as soon as I could." Harper sat up straight, trying to be brave. "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." Ethan knelt beside her couch so their eyes were even. "You do not need to thank me. You fought to stay alive. I only helped you finish the job." Harper's lip trembled, but she nodded. When she leaned back against the pillows, Ethan's gaze shifted to Ava. Their eyes locked and the room seemed to shrink around them, leaving only the two of them suspended between everything they had survived and everything they had not yet faced. Ava stood up slowly, walking toward him with unsteady steps. "You could have died," she whispered. "Going into that fire was reckless. You should have waited for the firefighters." Ethan's expression softened. "I did not think. I only knew you were in danger, that Harper was in danger. Nothing else mattered." Ava's voice cracked slightly. "You could have been killed." Ethan stepped closer until he was an arm's length away. "So could you. Twice." He said it quietly, but the words trembled with emotion. Ava looked at him, her heartbeat rising in her throat. "Why do you care so much?" Ethan held her gaze with a vulnerability he did not try to hide. "Because I have not stopped thinking about you since the night you dragged me out of that burning diner." Ava's breath faltered. He continued. "I keep seeing your face in the smoke, your hands pulling me through fire, your voice telling me to stay awake. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it. And when I saw you outside the apartment tonight, I thought I would lose my mind if anything happened to you." Ava stared at him, unable to breathe for a moment. She had spent so long being invisible to the world that hearing those words felt impossible, dangerous, beautiful. Ethan stepped close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin, even though they did not touch. "You are not a liability, Ava. You are not an obligation. You are not a problem I have to solve." Her voice shook. "Then what am I to you?" Ethan took a slow breath as if anchoring himself to the truth before speaking it aloud. "You are the person who made me feel alive again. The person who looks at me and does not see money or power or a last name on a building. The person I think of when everything else feels like ash." Ava's eyes filled with tears she did not want him to see. She looked away, blinking fast. Ethan's voice gentled. "Ava, please look at me." Instead, she sank onto the couch beside him, worn out in every way a person could be. Ethan sat next to her, keeping a respectful distance but close enough to feel her trembling breath. She wiped her cheek quickly. "I do not want to be someone's burden," she whispered. "I do not want to be the girl people point at. I do not want my sister to be dragged into this." Ethan shook his head firmly. "You are not a burden. You are the strongest person I know, and Harper is safe now. I made sure of that." Ava looked at him sharply. "You cannot solve everything with money or influence." Ethan nodded. "I know, and I am not trying to. I am trying to be here, beside you, not in front of you, not behind you, beside you." The sincerity in his voice almost broke her. She whispered, "I do not know how to trust this. I do not know how to trust you." Ethan lowered his gaze for the first time. "And you have every reason to hesitate. I lied by omission. I kept things from you. I let you face rumors alone. I let danger get too close." Ava's chest tightened. "Then why are you here now?" Ethan looked up slowly, his eyes full of apology and something deeper, something she could not name. "Because I choose you." Ava's breath hitched. "Not out of guilt, not out of fear, not because you saved me. Because when I look at you, the world finally feels quiet." Ava pressed her shaking hands together, her voice a whisper. "Ethan, if you keep saying things like that, I do not know what I might do." He inhaled sharply as if her words struck him somewhere he had not expected. Their eyes locked again, and this time neither looked away. The room went impossibly still. Romantic tension blossomed like a spark that refused to be smothered. Ethan reached out slowly, deliberately offering his hand open palm upward, giving her every chance to pull back. Ava stared at it, trembling. She should not take it. Everything about this was dangerous, complicated, unfair. But her heart moved before her fear could stop it. She placed her hand into his. Ethan let out a breath so soft she almost missed it. His thumb brushed the back of her hand, once gentle, careful, reverent. Ava whispered, "You scare me." Ethan whispered back, "You undo me." They sat like that for a long time, hand in hand in a quiet room where the world could not reach them. When Harper finally fell asleep, Ava slipped her hand gently from Ethan's, but the warmth remained in her skin like a promise she was not ready to speak, but could no longer deny. Ethan stood slowly. "Rest," he said softly. "I will be here in the morning." Ava watched him go, her heart trembling with something tender and terrifying. She had saved him from the flames, and now he was saving her from a life where she thought she did not matter. Ava Collins woke before sunrise. The next morning, the quiet room wrapped in a soft blue glow. Harper slept peacefully on the pull-out bed across the suite, breathing evenly for the first time since the fire. Ava sat at the small table with a cup of lukewarm tea she had forgotten to drink. Her mind ran in circles around one name: Ethan. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him stepping out of the flames with Harper in his arms. Every time she tried to steady her breathing, she felt again the warmth of his hand in hers, the sincerity in his voice when he said he chose her. She had lived 23 years believing people like him existed in a different universe, that their lives were made of glass marble and power, while hers was built from late shifts, overdue bills, and invisible sacrifices. Yet he had looked at her last night like she was the one steady thing he had left. Her heart was frightened by the way it responded. She kept telling herself she could not afford to feel this. She could not afford to fall. But she already knew falling was not something she could stop. A soft knock broke the silence. Ava stood quickly glancing at Harper, then opened the door just enough to peek out. Ethan stood in the hallway holding 2 paper cups of coffee and looking like he had not slept at all. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair slightly out of place, but his eyes softened the moment he saw her. "Morning," he said quietly. Ava stepped aside, letting him in without thinking. He handed her a cup, then sat down at the table across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them was comfortable but heavy with the things they were avoiding. Ethan cleared his throat softly. "I wanted to check on both of you before the day starts." Ava nodded. "She is better. Exhausted, but better." Ethan released a breath he had been holding. "Good. I was worried." She studied him, noticing the tension in his shoulders, the weariness he hid from everyone, but not from her. "Did you sleep at all?" He gave a small smile. "Not really. My mind would not stop. About the board, about Cole, about you." Her breath caught. Ethan leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. "Ava, I know your life has changed too quickly and too violently. I know none of this was something you asked for, and I do not want to pull you into more chaos. So I need to ask you something today, something important." Ava straightened, heart pounding. Ethan continued, voice low and steady. "I want you and Harper to move somewhere safer, somewhere secure where no one can reach you, somewhere you will not have to look over your shoulder." Ava blinked. "You want us to move?" "Yes, temporarily, until the investigation ends, until Cole is prosecuted, until this storm settles." Ava swallowed hard. "And where exactly is this place?" Ethan hesitated. "My private residence." Ava stared at him, stunned. She should have expected something like this, but hearing it aloud felt unreal. Ethan rushed to clarify. "You and Harper will have your own rooms, your own space, total privacy, security staff. Madison will be there, and I—" He stopped himself as if realizing how much he was revealing. "And you what?" Ava asked softly. Ethan looked down at his hands, then into her eyes with disarming vulnerability. "And I will finally be able to sleep, knowing you are safe." Ava's breath trembled. "Ethan, I do not want you to feel obligated," she whispered. "I do not want you to take responsibility for my entire life." Ethan reached across the small table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I am not offering responsibility," he said gently. "I am offering safety and choice. For the first time in a long time, you get to choose something that is not forced by survival." Ava looked away, trying to calm the knot rising in her throat. Silence filled the room. Then Ethan added quietly but with conviction, "And Ava, I want you there." Ava's pulse stuttered. "Why?" Ethan exhaled, leaning back slightly as if the truth had become too heavy to hold in his chest. "Because I care about you. Because every time I look for something steady, I end up looking at you. Because I cannot keep pretending this is only about protection." She felt her heart tremble under the weight of his words. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted to say everything she had swallowed for weeks, but she whispered instead, "People will talk. Let them. They will drag my name through the mud again. Let them. They will think I am using you. They already think that, and it does not change what is true." His voice lowered. "What is true is that you are the one person who did not ask me for anything, the one person who never wanted my money or my power, the one person who saved me without knowing my name." Ava could barely breathe. Ethan took a slow step toward her. "Tell me what you want, Ava. Not what you think is right. Not what you think is safe. What you truly want." She felt the words rising before she could stop them. "I want to feel safe." Ethan nodded. "And I want Harper to stop being scared. And—" She closed her eyes, once exhaling a tremor. "And I do not want you to leave." Something softened fiercely in Ethan's expression. He stepped forward cautiously, lifting a hand toward her shoulder but stopping inches away, giving her time to reject him. "She didn't, Ava," he whispered. "If you choose this, you are choosing me. Not my resources, not my title. Me." Ava opened her eyes slowly, and for the first time she let herself look at him without fear. She saw the man who had carried her sister from a burning home, the man who had risked his career to protect her, the man who looked at her like she was worth something more than the scraps life had thrown her way. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them until her breath mingled with his. Her voice was barely audible. Then, "Yes, I choose you." Ethan inhaled sharply, a flicker of awe crossing his face as if he had waited his entire life to hear those words. He did not touch her, not yet, but the space between them became charged, warm electric. Ava felt something inside her settle with terrifying clarity. Choosing him was dangerous, messy, complicated, but it was though. For the first time in years, she was choosing something not out of survival, but out of hope, and when Ethan whispered, "Thank you," Ava felt her heart finally unfold into something new, something fragile and fierce and undeniably theirs. Ava Collins stepped into Ward Technologies Tower 1 week later, not as the invisible cafeteria worker people whispered about, but as someone walking toward a life she never imagined she would be allowed to touch. The elevator hummed quietly, carrying her to the 15th floor where the new Community Outreach Division was being rebuilt from the ground up. Harper's scholarship paperwork had come through 2 days earlier. Ethan had not made a show of it. He had simply placed the envelope on the kitchen counter and said she earned it. Madison had cried. Ava had cried more. Now, as she walked through the bright hallway dressed in clean, simple clothes she had bought with her own savings, not Ethan's, she felt something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Worth. The office was warm and open sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. A small group of employees greeted her with genuine smiles, not judgment. She took her seat at the modest desk Madison had arranged for her and felt strangely at home. She spent the morning going through proposals for fire recovery programs, reading stories of families who had lost everything. She recognized their fear, their helplessness, their grief. She knew exactly what it meant to feel like the world had burned your life to ashes overnight. And because she knew she worked with quiet intensity, writing notes, asking questions, imagining solutions. Around noon, Madison peeked her head in with a teasing grin. "Someone wants to see you." Ava blinked. "Who?" But Madison only raised her eyebrows knowingly. Ava followed her sister-like figure down the hall toward the executive wing, her heart picking up speed. Then she saw him. Ethan Ward stood near the glass balcony overlooking the entire Seattle skyline, wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled as if he had run his hands through it one too many times while thinking. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, and the entire world seemed to still. "You are early," he said softly. "I wanted to see how your first morning was." Ava smiled nervously. "It is good. Busy, but good." He motioned for her to join him by the window. When she stepped beside him, she felt the familiar warmth of his presence, but it no longer frightened her. It steadied her. "You read a lot today," Ethan noted knowingly. Ava nodded. "These stories, they break you, but they also make you want to help." Ethan's lips curved slightly. "That is why I put you here. You understand people in ways numbers never will." Ava blushed lightly, looking out at the skyline. For a few moments they simply stood there, the quiet between them tender and full. Then Ethan turned toward her, holding something small in his hand. "I have something for you." Ava looked at the object and froze. It was the silicone bracelet. Except it was different now, carefully repaired, cleaned, restored. But the burned edge remained intact, a dark, perfectly preserved reminder of the night everything changed. "I had it remade," Ethan said quietly, stronger this time. "Still the same flaw, still the same scar. I wanted to keep the burn," he added, "because that mark saved my life." Ava reached out with trembling fingers, brushing the edge of the bracelet reverently. Ethan continued. "This was the prototype for a device we never released. I wore it the night of the explosion, thinking it was just a habit. But now, it means something else entirely." He gently took her hand, turning her wrist palm up. Ava swallowed hard. Ethan's voice lowered almost a whisper. "It used to remind me of danger. Now it reminds me of you." He slid the bracelet onto her wrist. It settled perfectly against her skin, warm where his fingers had touched. Ava gasped quietly, overwhelmed by the symbolism. Ethan met her eyes. "That night at the diner you pulled me from the flames. But Ava, you have saved me far more times than that." Favi blinked rapidly, emotion rising fast. Ethan stepped closer, but as always left a small space between them, letting her choose if she wanted to close it. "Harper is safe," he said softly. "You are building something meaningful, and the noise around us is finally fading. But I am not going to assume anything. I need to know if you feel like you are still being rescued." Ava inhaled deeply, letting the truth settle inside her. "No," she whispered. "I feel like I am finally standing on my own." Ethan's shoulders eased a fraction. "Good. Because I want to be with you, Ava, but never as your savior, only as your equal." Something warm unfurled in her chest. She stepped closer, the space between them closing naturally. "I know." Ethan dipped his head slightly, their foreheads almost touching, but not quite. Romantic tension pulled the air tight around them. Rain began tapping softly against the glass windows as Seattle clouds rolled in. The sound cocooned them in a private world where everything felt possible, but everything also demanded courage. Ava looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know. I am too. I do not want us to rush. I do not want to ruin something before it has a chance to become real." Ethan nodded, his voice barely audible. "And we will not." Her hand trembled slightly as she lifted it, brushing her fingers along his cheek in a tender, almost hesitant motion. Ethan closed his eyes at the touch as if it broke something open inside him. Their lips hovered inches apart, breaths mixing, hearts racing, neither willing to break the tension too soon. They pulled back slowly, almost reluctantly. Ethan smiled softly. "When you are ready." Ava finished for him. "You will be here. Always." A quiet promise settled between them, one that felt deeper than any confession could. That afternoon, Ava returned to her new desk wearing the silicone bracelet, feeling its weight like a heartbeat of its own. Symbolic, scarred, eternal. She caught Ethan watching her from the glass walkway above, but instead of looking away, she held his gaze, letting something unspoken pass between them. She was not the poor waitress anymore. She was the woman who saved a billionaire. The woman he chose. The woman who now chose herself. 1 year after the night the flames changed everything. Seattle glowed with the soft gold of early spring, the kind that made the whole city feel like it had taken a deep breath after a long winter. Ava Collins stood backstage at the Grand Hall of the Ward Foundation's annual Fire Recovery Gala, smoothing the simple navy dress she had bought for the occasion. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the surreal weight of how much her life had changed in 12 months. The girl who once wiped tables at a diner now stood moments away from giving a speech as the face of the program that had helped hundreds of families rebuild after fires. Harper, now a confident 17-year-old in her first year of early college classes, beamed proudly from the side holding a stack of brochures she had designed herself. The foundation team bustled around them, preparing light, sound, and seating for nearly 500 guests, city leaders, donors, and families whose stories mirrored their own. Ava breathed in deeply, reminding herself she belonged here. She had earned this. Madison rushed over and wrapped her in a quick squeeze. "You ready, superstar?" Ava laughed softly. "Not even close, but I guess that has never stopped me before." Madison winked exactly. "Now go out there and make my brother cry." Speaking of Ethan, Ava felt him before she saw him. She turned, and there he was. Ethan Ward, in a tailored dark suit, hair slightly windswept from the evening breeze, the kind of effortlessly magnetic presence that still made her pulse stutter even after a year. But it was his smile, the quiet one he saved only for her, that made her chest warm. "You look incredible," he said softly. Ava smiled back, feeling that familiar mix of tenderness and certainty that defined their relationship now. "Thank you. You made all this happen." He shook his head. "You made this happen, Ava. You built the program. You fought for every family. I just followed your lead." A soft knock signaled it was time. The crowd quieted beyond the curtains. Ava's heart thudded with nervous anticipation. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You know I am proud of you. But that is not why I am here tonight." She tilted her head. "Then why?" Ethan gently took her hand, squeezing once warm, steady grounding. "Because I love watching you shine in places the world once said you did not belong." Her breath caught the words hitting her with a gentleness that felt like a promise, not a demand. She touched the silicone bracelet on her wrist, now a year old, but still carrying its burn mark like a history etched into its surface. This little bracelet had become a symbol of everything she fought to become, everything she refused to let fear take away. The curtain opened. Applause filled the room. Ava stepped forward, flanked by Harper on one side and Ethan on the other, a small, chosen family forged from fire loss and impossible hope. She reached the podium, hands steady now. "Tonight," she began, "we are not here to talk about tragedy. We are here because of what survived." And as Ethan watched her speak with pride, awe, and quiet love, she realized something simple and breathtaking. She had saved him from the flames, but he had saved her from believing she would never matter. When she stepped off the stage, Ethan took her hand without hesitation, threading their fingers together as if they had always belonged that way. And, for the first time in her life, Ava Collins felt truly home. If you are still here right now, listening to Ava and Ethan's journey all the way from that burning diner to this night of quiet triumph, then you are officially part of this story's heart. And I want to talk to you for a moment, not as a narrator, but as someone who knows why these stories matter. Maybe you stayed because you believe that kindness from someone who has nothing can change the life of someone who has everything. Maybe you stayed because you know what it feels like to be invisible, like Ava working hard, hoping someone will simply see you. Or maybe you stayed because you know what it means to be Ethan, someone carrying heavy expectations, pretending to be strong until the right person finally looks past the armor. Whatever brought you here, I want to ask you something. When was the last time someone's small act of courage changed your day, your week, or your life? Was it a stranger who held a door? Was it a friend who called when you thought no one would? Was it a moment that seemed tiny but stayed with you like a scar that turned into a symbol of survival? If a memory just came to mind, drop it in the comments. I promise someone out there needs to read it. Stories like this one remind us of something simple but powerful. Worth is not measured by wealth. Love is not measured by perfection. And sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. If Ava's bravery inspired you, hit the like button. If Ethan's transformation from shattered to sincere touched your heart, share this video. And if Harper's hope made you smile, tell me where you are watching from, because every city, every state, every small corner of the world deserves stories like this. You know what else I would love to hear? Which moment of the story hit you the hardest? Was it Ava running into the flames when everyone else was running out? Was it Ethan kneeling in the burning debris searching for her and Harper with nothing but determination in his eyes? Or was it the quiet moments, the soft, almost confessions, the times they stopped themselves from reaching out even though their hearts had already chosen? Tell me in the comments so I can make the next story even better for you. And if you want more stories about ordinary people who find extraordinary love with billionaires, cowboys, single dads, powerful CEOs, or the girl no one notices until the moment she changes everything, then make sure you subscribe. Turn on the bell so you never miss the next journey, because trust me, I have more stories coming that will make your heart race, your eyes sting, and your soul feel something warm again. Before you go, I want to leave you with a question. In your own life, what is the burned silicone bracelet moment? What is the thing that nearly broke you but ended up becoming the symbol of your strength? Think about it. Write it down. Or share it below. Someone else might find courage in your answer. And finally, thank you truly for spending this time with me and with Ava and Ethan. Thank you for caring about their story, for rooting for them, for feeling every high and every low. You make this channel a place where kindness wins, where love grows in unexpected places, and where stories like this one get to find the people who need them most. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care of your heart. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of bravery can pull someone from the flames.